This is On the Money with Ryan Wheelis, financial advisor and the founder of Allied Wealth. Offices all around the Texas area, but more importantly, if you are hearing us on the airwaves or if you're watching us on the YouTube, I don't care where you're at, in the country or here in the state, give us a call. We'll put together your financial flight plan. Ryan's got tons of no-cost tools at retirenowhouston.com, right? We still have the retirement tax calculator. If you're around the area, anytime that you're doing live events.
There's like 40 free reports on there. Social Security, Medicare, taxes, transitioning from being an engineer to being a retiree, transitioning from being an airline pilot to being a retiree, all kind of stuff on there that's free and useful information for the great folks of Houston.
But the live events as well. If you go to retirenowhouston.com, you can find out when the live events are going to be. You can register there. There's no cost to that. People can then come and ask your questions. I love this dynamic between me and you, but this is static. Our listeners aren't able to ask you questions, although I would love to do that. So, folks, if you've got questions, please call the phone number. We might read it on the air live. If you'd like us to, we'll leave your name out of it. 844-944-7555. I want to get to this, though. Something that Americans today are fearing more than divorce, death, getting fired, having poor health. The number one fear right now for those over the age of 50, even more than the public speaking, is retirement itself. Now, when did that happen, that we started fearing going into retirement? We'll talk about some of the whys and the levers of what they're afraid of, but does this surprise you, Ryan?
All of those people who come in the office, no matter what level they all are fearful. Do I have enough? Do I have enough? And it's because I think we're beating this retirement crisis to death, and all these polls and statistics that are in front of us all the time. It causes us anxiety and fear and concern about whether or not we're going to be able to stop working one day and use what we have saved to finance the remaining years we have on this planet. Which the hard part is we don't know how much time that is, right? If I knew at 65 I lived 10 years and at 75 I was going to die and go meet my maker, that's a pretty easy retirement plan, right? I mean, it's, here's $1 million divided by 10. I got $100,000 a year I can spend, a little Social Security on top of that. I'm going to have some fun, okay? But we don't know how long we're going to live. In fact, there's a strong chance if you're hearing my voice right now, you could live to be 100.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now you've got this finite amount of resources and this potentially not infinite amount of time, because we all know that's not true, but a longer timeline than we initially expected to have. And it gets pretty fearful, Spike. And I equate it to this. Flying home, right, from the golf tournament I told you about in the beginning of the show, we're at 36,000 feet and we're in the tops of some clouds. And I went into these clouds, but just before I went in, I could see a thunderstorm at our 11 o'clock position, and I could see a thunderstorm at our 1 o'clock position. Okay, so on each side of the airplane are thunderstorms, and we're at 36,000. The tops of these storms are 50,000 feet. Nothing scares me more than inadvertently flying into a thunderstorm in an airplane. It's terrifying. It will rip the wings right off your airplane, and it's not a good situation.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm flying, and now I've got radar in the airplane. Okay, I've got onboard weather radar, a Sirius XM weather radar, ADS-B weather radar, and I can see them on my screen, but now I'm in the clouds, and I can't see them with my own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The uncertainty that I felt in those moments, it's not fun. I don't love it. Now I'm safe. I know what's going on. I'm aware, but I kind of feel like that's the same way with the folks that we coach on to, how to be able to retire well with the resources. They're in the clouds. They know the thunderstorms are out there. They just don't know where they are or if they're going to, or how to get around them. It's kind of the same thing.
And I think it's some of those that I just listed there. Rising cost of long-term care, to go a little slower for our radio listeners right now. Poor investment decisions or running out of funds. And then a lot of them then become lifestyle, feeling disconnected, adapting to routine or lifestyle that is different from what it used to be. Even my father has told me about, friends who have started to pass away. I mean, when you start to lose that friend group. But going back to being in the clouds, and you're seeing the clouds at 50,000 feet on the radar, Could that possibly be the long-term care? And I know it's not a fun topic for people to talk about, but to add a statistic on it that I just read, if a couple reaches the age of 65 together, there's a 70% chance that one of you will need long-term care at some point. Okay, 70. It's not guaranteed, but that's almost 3 out of 4 chance. Those are not odds I would want to bet my retirement savings against. So how do we insure it? How do we insure it against long-term care?
Well, Spike, there's a lot of stuff you can do. In fact, there's ways to get long-term care coverage without actually having to pay long-term care premiums. And folks, that's something we specialize in helping people do at Allied Wealth. We're very good at it. And again, it's one of these things a lot of people don't know about, but it's out there and it works really well. But when it comes to long-term care, I think a lot of people overlook something. They have a home. It's paid for. Use your paid-for home to hedge out long-term care risk, folks. For instance, if you got a $300,000 paid-for house, and that property grows at 3% a year for the next, 20 years, okay, what's it worth in 20 years? Probably about $600,000, okay? Well, now you've got that home. You've got $600,000. It's paid for. Sell the house. Pay the long-term care cost, okay? Do a reverse mortgage. Pay the long-term care cost. There's a lot of things you can do with just a house alone. You can buy long-term care insurance, Mike. Now, it's getting expensive. It's dynamic. It will change on you. By the time you're going to need it, the insurance company is going to send you a letter that says, sorry, but I know you're 65 now. You're getting closer to needing this long-term care insurance, but we're going to raise your premiums to give you the same coverage that you've already got, or we're going to lower your premiums, we'll keep your premiums at the same level for a reduced amount of coverage. So they're basically changing the game on you, right?
Yeah.
And that the reason why, folks, is they can't calculate how long people are going to live. So there's plenty of ways to cover long-term care. A lot of folks that are listening right now, they could probably self-insure. Right now, the cost of care in the state of Texas, I believe, is $80,000 a year for a decent spot. The average stay in a home is 3 years. 3 times 80,000 is $240,000. At least get out there and do a deep dive on long-term care insurance and what the opportunities are out there to hedge out long-term care risk, because so many of us wait too long. We don't engage soon enough where we should be. And there's missed opportunity to really hedge out the risk spike and have peace of mind, because it is a big fear.
Right. And aren't some of these things something that sooner is better? For instance, hey, somebody in the news as of today, Brett Favre, Parkinson's. Now, we don't know.
Man, that tore me up.
Yeah, and that's not...
How the heck does Brett Favre... Good God, dude. I mean, it's like...
come on. How Michael J. Fox? I mean, I like Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, but Brett Favre is like the health guy. Like, I took care of myself. I worked out. I'm good looking. I take care of myself. I eat right. He does all these things, and now Brett Favre's got Parkinson's. It's just mind-blowing to me, man.
Yeah, but Michael J. Fox was Michael P. Keaton. Come on. One of the greatest TV characters.
Family Ties, I know. The original cool guy, I go back.
Well, he was the money guy. See, he was about money and being a Republican, and it was fun to watch, and his family was liberal on the other side. But yes, I mean, the reason I'm bringing it up, not necessarily that Parkinson's would send him later into a long-term care facility, but maybe, or certainly needing help around the house depending on how it progresses. My point is, isn't it better to secure some version of long-term care when you're healthy as opposed to trying to get it after you're diagnosed? Or can you even get something after you're diagnosed when it comes to long-term care? Or what about these hybrid tools? Because that's not necessarily based on your health.
It's all a function of dollar, Spike. I mean, there's probably some stuff out there you can buy that's really going to be really expensive. And that's why it's so important, Spike, to have a plan for this stuff prior to the unforeseen event occurring. It's that simple. You really should evaluate whether or not you, A, can self-insure. If you can't, go to B, which is okay. If I can't self-insure, I probably need to have some type of insurance so that if I do or my spouse does, go into a long-term care facility, that after they're likely deceased, because that's what happens in most cases, can I maintain my standard of living that we had prior to my spouse going into that long-term care facility? And then lastly, if you don't have the ability to fund a long-term care policy, you need to look at some other alternatives that are out there as well. And there are things you can do at that level, but those are really your options, Spike.
What I worry about is Americans crossing their fingers saying, I've got 500,000, we've got $1 million, we've got $1.5 million. We're going to get our Social Security. And when I've done the numbers for our monthly spend, I think we're going to be okay. But if one of you then has to go into long-term care, now we're at beyond constraint. We're at underfunded. And I'm trying to help warn people before that happens.
I mean, Spike, listen, people think that as a financial advisor, all I do is tell you about stocks and bonds and ETFs, evaluate your risk, build an investment policy statement, look at your risk tolerance and match you to investments accordingly. There is so much more to what we actually do. The investment consulting piece is only a small part of what we do. There's wealth enhancement, there's wealth protection, there's taxes, there's healthcare management, Medicare navigation, long-term care navigation, proper structures for passing wealth from one generation to the next, trust, wills, estate planning, taxes. All of these things are things we are knowledgeable on to a point. And if we get to a point where we're outside of our knowledge base, we work with a very close-knit group of experts that we will point you in the direction of and help get you the help that you need, whether it's establishing a trust or a long-term care policy, which we do in-house, or Medicare navigation, which we do, or tax liability issues, which we can help with in-house a lot of times. But sometimes we get to the point where, hey, take this strategy to your CPA and show your CPA the strategy. In fact, get them on the phone with me and I'll walk them through it, right?
Right.
That's what we do. There's just a lot more to it than just investment consulting.
Hey, for those listening on the radio right now, we got to take a very short break. If you're watching on the videos, we're going to continue our conversation. What is some of the turbulence we're seeing in retirement right now with financial advisor Ryan Wheelis of Allied Wealth? Call the phone number if you're on the radio. We have folks standing by right now who will schedule your appointment. We'll get you started on your own financial flight plan, no cost to you. Do your tax review in retirement. You can schedule yourself to come to one of the live events at retirenowhouston.com. All kinds of free tools on the website there. Phone number, folks. Call it now, 844-944-7555. Set up your financial flight plan review with Ryan Wheelis of Allied Wealth, 844-944-7555.